Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Lawful Remedy. With any luck, we are recording. Looks like we are. Just getting confirmation there. This is show 17 of our Lawful Remedy, which goes out on an ad hoc basis. We have had a bit of a break. We've been at Her Majesty's pleasure, running around doing all sorts of exciting things. I'm joined, of course, as ever, by Karen Dodd. Hello, Karen. How are you?
Hello, Richard. Yeah, it's good to be back. Good to be back. We've had a few weeks off, haven't we, for the summer, being busy doing other bits and bobs,
Absolutely.
including actually the Lawful Remedy. We have been on the road, and we have got a live show this weekend in Canterbury.
Yeah, we will be talking about that a little bit later on.
Yes, push that out.
And as you know, we have our clever clogs waiting in the wings to answer your questions. If you've got a question in the chat, as you can see at the side, please start your question in the all caps, the legal persona, with the word question, Q-U, you know how I spelled it, and then your question, then that will highlight us. Although we do have, I gather you've got a load of questions.
I have got a load,
in the interim time.
Yeah.
So, Karen, who have we got on the show to begin with?
Yes, as we were saying before, tonight it's all in 3D because we have the 3 Ds, the 3 Davids. Excellent. And we have been talking about Dixon of Dock Green, and we have abbreviated your name as well, haven't we? So it's all Ds today.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
I can't imagine what you've abbreviated mine to.
So, first of all, we have Peace Officer Davey. Hello, Peace Officer Davey. Are you there?
I am indeed. Hello.
Hello.
Well practiced.
It's a bit of a deja vu tonight, isn't it?
We had a rehearsal.
We had a rehearsal. And then we allegedly, I think Dave is here. Are you here, Dave?
Allegedly, hiya.
There you are.
Again, I have to apologise for my voice. I've lost it, and it's only slowly coming back.
You're still looking for it.
Yeah, there it is.
There it is. You look quite interesting, actually, because it's all dark behind you, so we can just see this head. There's no body, is there? It's very good. Well, there we are. A bit of skin there. And then finally, we have the amazing People's Lawyer, David Edelman. Hello, David Edelman.
Yes, hello. Evening all. Evening to the other Daves and to Richard. Pleasure to be here again.
Well, it's lovely to have you, Dave. Thank you so much for coming along, all of you, to join us in another of these wonderful Lawful Remedies. And let me just say to the gentleman or lady who is downloading the Lawful Remedies and then putting them up on your channel some months after the event, not that I'm too worried about that because the information is still valid. It was just nice to have been asked. But anyway, there we are, somebody else putting out the content. We see that the chat room is filling up, which is rather good. Hello to you. Thank you so much for joining us once again. And I think we've got a bit of a sort of a theme going on today's show.
We're trying to be a little bit more organised, although it is geared up for the audience to ask their questions to the panellists, but we thought we'll have a theme of anything to do with cars.
Cars?
Yeah, not the song, which I really like.
Yeah, can you give us, just so that we get a copyright strike, could you give us a rendition of Cars?
Who's gonna ding, ding, ding tonight? Who's gonna take her home tonight? That one.
Right,
is that enough? No, I think that's enough, isn't it?
Glad I asked that.
Yeah, but you're not really.
Right. So, are we going to kick off with who's got a question? Have you got a car
Well,
question?
I have, but they're not really car related. I don't think they're car related.
Okay, I do have a question which I've got written here on the screen. If I can read that.
Yeah, indeed.
This came in. Yeah. It's a little bit lengthy, but I'll seem to get through it as quickly as I can. So it's about speeding. So this is a letter from a lady who wrote to me, and she says, I have had my paperwork through from the DVLA for reapplying and paying for my new driving licence post-ban. Interesting to note that it states on both the form itself and the info pamphlet in bold, we do not accept PO box number addresses. I think that would be interesting to ask why they wouldn't do that, because that might be useful for us. This conflicts with some advice that I have seen out there in which people state as part of a way to travel in the private, along with putting your car into a trust, to address register at a PO box so no one can find a man or woman to whom to send the PCN and speeding fine notices to. So this advice clearly does not stand in real life. I don't know whether, did she say driving licence? That's different from the V5.
Yes, yeah.
So she may have got muddled there, but
yeah,
we'll ask
we're talking about fines, aren't we? Or notices.
So she's wondering if this is a fanciful theory. But anyway, having gone through 15 months of trying to challenge without successful resolution in the real world, experimenting and learning to experiment, in my experiences for the aforementioned, I found the methods advised don't seem to work, though I will take it as far as I can in an attempt at a remedy at a judicial review, after which I think I've run out of options and will just have to accept my conviction and consequences as a criminal, she says. Also, interested points that may be of use to people, given probably that no one else sees this info unless you've been disqualified. So she's obviously been disqualified and received one of these forms, the D27. And the point she refers to, it encourages you to agree with organ donation. What on earth has that got to do with a driving license, she says, with only a cross in the box set of options, which could easily therefore be doctored by adding crosses where the blanks are left. So in other words, somebody else could
no
add
signature.
it to and say, we'll have an organ, we'll have your head.
I'll have your eyes.
Finally, she says it lists 24 health conditions relevant, so people should be mindful what the GP diagnoses that they allow themselves to be labelled with. Although, of course, safety on the road is important, but it shows how institutions work together to nanny us and make decisions for us. She says you have to pay a renewal of £65, so this is an extra penalty addition to the court fine, it states. So driving licence as opposed to the V5, she says they won't let you have a PO box, but I don't think that matters on a V5. Maybe we could ask
the panel.
The panel. Who would like to answer that? Wave at me.
What was the question again? The final question.
Well, there was a number. One was
Using a PO box,
PO
basically.
box on the driving licence. And the second bit was about being disqualified on the D29. She's talking about organ donation and what's that got to do with the thing and various things that the GP diagnose you as, so they'll label that with you. But she says 15 months of trying to challenge without resolution in the real world. She's just, we don't actually know what process that she has actually tried to challenge with.
So the first part of it was about the PO box. Now, back in the Free Man on the Land days, we did use PO boxes and they went through. But they changed it since they realised that, speeding tickets and stuff will end up going to a PO box. And, there was no actual address for bailiffs and debt collectors to turn up at.
Right.
So they changed it. Now, there is something else that one can use. It's actually a free service operated by the Postal Service. It's called Poste Restante. Okay, so POSTE RESTENTE. Okay. Essentially it means that if you were homeless, or if you were going to be away from home at a certain place that you knew you were going to be, you can actually have your address be Poste Restante, and then you'd give the address of the post office. So then your mail will get routed to that post office and you'd pick it up from that post office.
Oh, okay? I see.
Right. So you can do that. So, if you buy a car and you do the whole V5 thing or whatever, you can put Poste Restante and then the name of your post office. That will get around triggering, PO box numbers and stuff, because you're giving them an actual address. Yes, you'll be able to pick up your V5 or whatever it is. But there won't be an actual address for bailiffs and stuff. And if anything comes to that address and stays there for, I think it's a month, it gets returned to sender. So if you don't pick it up.
That's handy.
Can I just add something?
Of course. Well,
there's no legal requirement to have a fixed abode. In fact, there's no legal requirement for a man or a woman to have or do anything, to be quite honest. But so the alternative to what Dave's saying is there's something called UK Postbox, and I'm sure it's not the only alternative. You can, for a paid monthly subscription, you can have a physical address where mail will be sent, and the option there is a bit more sophisticated than the post office, as you'd expect, because you're paying for it. They can forward it onto you physically, they can forward it onto you electronically, or they can destroy it on your behalf. So it's that's another option. And really, you know, we should be using all these options because, you know, the spider's web is closing in, and we need to find ways to pierce that web and to keep ourselves from asphyxiating in the cobwebs.
Yes, who would like to asphyxiate in the cobwebs? Yes.
Can I jump in?
I'm sorry,
well?
Dave. You go, Dave.
Yeah. First of all, I love Dave's idea with the post responsate or something like that.
Respondente.
Absolutely, I think that's brilliant. Yeah, that you've got because there's a post office in pretty much every town, and you know, quite a lot of villages. The method,
Well, they certainly used to be, but they are closing rapidly, aren't they?
They're in pubs and shops
Pubs
and stuff.
shops
Yeah,
and
randomly,
public
yeah.
lavatories. I saw one the other day.
No,
No, I didn't.
yeah. So, but also David's method as well is another sort of way around. I've got a office serve, it's called, virtual address. Only it's not a virtual address, it's actually a physical address, like David was saying. It's a physical address that is registered. You know, I'm registered with it. I pay £24 a year to get to be able to use it as a company director address and register a company, and you get stuff from HMRC. And then there's the prescription that you can pay monthly to have general mail sort of forwarded to you. Now, the thing is, what I would say is, if you've got, so basically you've got a virtual mailbox just like a PO box, right? Because a PO box is a mail forwarding service.
Right.
So it's basically the same as that, but because the DVLA state no PO boxes, it doesn't state these other options, you know, these other, as I say, they're physical addresses, and they are just mail forwarding companies. So the mail, the company's house will will send a letter to them, and they will scan it and email me a copy, or they will forward it. They'll stick a sticker on it and pop it straight back in the post, and that will come to me. The thing about using that as opposed to Dave's version with using the post office is that it will be forwarded on to you. Whereas with Dave's method, I looked into it after Dave mentioned it. I looked into it, and I think I'm sure I read that it said after 18 days, it will then be returned to sender. So therefore, with that method, I would say that you haven't got a proof that it's been served. Do you know what I mean? So
Yes.
a proof of delivery, because this is a common mistake a lot of people make. They've been told by a lot of different people, you know, when you get a letter from, let's say, for a speeding offence or something or whatever, and you write on it, no contract, return to sender, and pop it back on the post, that's a huge mistake, because you've just proven that it was served, that it entered your letterbox, and that's when, according to the law, it's classed as being served, not just, you know, proof that it's touched your skin kind of thing. So I would say the post office method is a better method. However, me personally, I don't care about using my home address, because if they send me a speeding allegation, a 28 days to supply driver details, I'm going to send it back to them asking for more evidence. Okay, that's the first thing I'm going to do, asking for evidence of the driver of the vehicle, because only the driver, not the registered keeper, is responsible for the offence. So the registered keeper under section 172 of the Road Traffic Act 1988 is duty bound to provide the driver details where it's possible to do so. But it states within subsection 4 of section 172 of the Road Traffic Act 1988 that a person is not guilty of an offence if they have I can't remember the exact wording off the top of my head, but basically if they can't with reasonable diligence supply the details of the driver.
Ascertain the name of the driver. Yeah.
Exactly. Ascertain, that's it. Ascertain the name of the driver. So what you're basically saying then is, unless you can tell me, because I lend my car to my brother, for example, and I've got a hypothetical speeding offence, it's called, video on my Peace Officers UK YouTube channel, which explains, so I come up with a hypothetical situation where I say, I'm driving along the A23, and then to go and pick up my brother from Crawley, and then when I'm almost home, my brother says, "Oh, I've left my phone at home, right? I need to go and get it." So I say, and he says to me, rather than you turn around and go and take me to pick it up, carry on going home and I'll just borrow your car, right? So it's just given a hypothetical situation where you've got two people using the same car within about half an hour to an hour of each other. So which is it? Yeah. The image you've got from the speed camera, yeah, of the rear of my vehicle doesn't show who's driving. So I don't know if it was me or my brother. I can't name my brother because I'll be implicating my brother if he's innocent and if it was actually me. And I can't name me because I'm implicating myself if it was my brother. So give me more evidence, give me more information, and then I will name who is in the image. Because I know that if I'm doing 80 mile an, I mean, that's a 70 mile an hour speed limit. If I'm doing 80, there's no way they've got a crystal clear ultra HD picture or video evidence of me or my brother driving the vehicle. So it's going to be quite blurry, it's going to be pixelated, it's going to have the glare of the sky on the windscreen. So if you can't prove it, because the burden of proof falls upon the accuser and not the accused, then they can't provide proof. As long as you've responded within that 28 days, then they can't do you for failing to provide driver details. You're batting the ball back over to them.
If your brother is a twin, it makes it even more tricky. No, I know it doesn't have to be, but I'm just saying if they did manage to get your photo and your brother is a twin or a triplet even, it's like that would be useful.
Could I address the other part of the question?
Please do, Dave. Allegedly.
So the other part of the question was that this person has been doing all these processes and they've not worked. Okay. Yeah. This is actually something that annoys me quite a bit, actually, because back in the Freeman days, that wasn't even a concept. Nobody was like saying, "Oh, does it work? Does it work?" Because it was literally a whole bunch of people, thousands of people, testing the fences. We're all trying different things, and nobody was saying, "Does it work?" Because we were like pioneers in this. Okay, it's only now that people are like, I've got to say, too cowardly to test offences. Right? They want a sure thing. They want somebody else to have tested it first and to say it works completely, so that it's nice and safe for them to do it. Right? It annoys me quite a bit. The point is, it's not about the process. It's not about the template. It's about you. It's about you, the one that's using it. Okay. The template isn't there for you to send to people. It's there for you to learn and understand what's going on and what you're doing. And once you've done that, once you've understood the whole idea behind the process, then you go and write your own. You don't just paste your name into the template. Okay. So when this person says, "Oh, I did it and it didn't work," well, no, they tried the process half-heartedly, and it didn't work for them because they didn't know what they were doing. I know that sounds rather harsh, but I have. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say. I mean, on one sense, you could say it's harsh. I think in this instance, the lady said she just tried lots of things, but she wasn't going to give up. And I think that's the key thing, isn't it? Because you can try something and it doesn't work for you on that instance because you don't necessarily understand the whole process, as you said. But the fact that you go, okay, fair enough, that one didn't work, but let me try this or let me try that. So you keep going.
It's still going into it half-heartedly. It's like, okay, let's try this one. Oh, it doesn't work. Oh, let's try this one. No,
but isn't that what you just said, that the freedom of the land people were doing back in the day as pioneers? They were trying something, going, okay, that didn't work, so I'll try this one.
Right, but here's the difference is now that we've pretty much got kind of, well, I've got toolkits out there now that just, if you follow this thing diligently, then there's nothing they can do, right? Because what we're doing is not using free man on the land techniques or common law techniques. We're just using the core tenets of law, which essentially break down to what are known as the maxims of law. Things. Are we talking
law or legal here?
We're talking the maxims of law. So things that you can't argue with. One maxim is he who makes the claim must prove. Yeah. And that's fairly obvious. If somebody's making a claim, they've got to come with some proof that their claim is valid, right? So there's a whole load of these maxims that nobody can challenge, nobody can argue with, and they're just like pillars of law. Okay, so armed with those and knowing what their requirements in order to build a case against you are, if you can actually prevent them or not prevent them, essentially realize that they can't build a case against you. Once you understand that, then their approach falls apart. It'll get sort of more obvious if later on I go through a scenario, but if you know what the tenets of law are, that if they're going to claim something against you, they've got to come with proof or evidence, and you can hold them to showing you that evidence. If they don't provide the evidence, then they've got no case.
Yeah, I think that's such a valid case that you've all made. But really, what you're saying, what you were doing, Freemen of the Land, a few years ago. You were pioneers, and we've come on a long way, haven't we? And there's so many of us trying to fight the system, but a lot of people do want an easy way out. And I think it is really important that they have to understand what they're doing, not just filling out a form or getting somebody else to do it, because that's half-hearted, like you say. And one way might not work, so they've got to try another way. And they can't really blame you guys or us, because we're all in it together, for want of a better phrase. But you've got to really feel what you're doing. It is, when people say being sovereign, and friends come to me, so I don't want to pay the tax. Well, can you find out this, that, and the other? And I said, it's not just a case of, filling in a form or finding out. You've really got to take this on with both hands and immerse yourself in it. It's a massive project. It's a whole new way of being.
But there is no one way to deal with any of this.
No.
Because the point of it is they are lying to you, and you've got truth on your side. So they're in the wrong, you're in the right. Okay. So there are many ways to leverage the fact that you're in the right and they're in the wrong. Okay. Now, some ways make it more obvious than others, but that's the crux of what's going on. You expose the fact that they're in the wrong and you're in the right. That's it. That's the crux of this whole thing.
Can I add something? Yeah, there are certain pitfalls. I agree with both what Davey and allegedly Dave have said. But there are certain pitfalls that what I teach my students is that ultimately they are the remedy. The remedy is inside of them, and they just have to do the due diligence to work out which tool is on offer that reflects their own internal remedy. And the pitfall is because you're dealing with essentially administrative courts that run presumptions of guilt. The pitfall is to, in effect, admit that you were driving. So if you start asking, well, what speed? If you start saying, no, I wasn't driving at this speed, I was driving at that speed. Well, you've admitted driving, and therefore there's a presumption of guilt arises that if you were driving, then you're guilty. It's no, the speed is irrelevant because they've already got you on the speed according to their system. But like Dave was saying, you can undo it with the use of the judicious question. So you go to the evidence. And so I don't want to repeat what Dave is saying, but just want to say avoid pitfalls. And to do that, you really do have to do quite a lot of study because you've got to know your enemy and you've got to know what tricks the enemy are playing on you to avoid falling for those tricks. And now I'm not saying that questioner has fallen for any tricks because I don't know the facts of her particular case. But one thing is for sure, that if she keeps on doing her due diligence, she will find the remedy that's right for her because there is one. And she is it, but she's got to find the tool that goes with it.
Persist. Don't give up. Persist. Keep going.
Yeah. Can I just add something actually, which is if anybody has got a case that has, let's say they got a 28 days to give driver details letter, NIP, then and they didn't respond and it went to court anyway and they didn't appear at court, and they ended up with points and a fine in their absence, then you can submit an ignorance of proceedings form, which used to be known as a statutory declaration or a stat dec, ignorance of proceedings form, which basically says you did not receive any notification that it had gone to court and you would like the opportunity to appear in court and defend the case. And what that does, if it's accepted by the court, if you say, oh, I got, the letter came through the door, but I didn't open it, then you won't, they won't accept the stat dec. If you just state to them that, well, I knew nothing about this until I got the letter with the fines and the points, because they send these letters out in bulk and they do it the cheapest option, so they don't get a recorded or tracked delivery when they do this, because as I say, they do it on such a bulk scale, so therefore they can't prove that you definitely received it or it came through your letterbox and not somebody else's. It might have been misdelivered. They can't prove delivery, and if they can't prove delivery, then they have no case as far as the failure to provide driver details. So then it will go to court, and then you will just explain to them, prove your case, basically, show me evidence. Yeah, I've been a Mackenzie friend for somebody and went to court, done this process, but unfortunately, he got done for the failure to provide driver details, but he got found not guilty of the speeding offence, which seems ridiculous. And the reason he got found guilty is because he'd taken advice to state with it when he received that notice to give 28 days driver details. He put, let's say Joe Blogs, right? I, Joe of the family blogs, being a living man, blah, blah, blah. Given a common law sort of living man argument, who is the victim, what is the crime, etc. And because of that, he was found guilty because it was proof that he received it, and didn't respond in the way that Section 172 of the Road Traffic Act states. So that's why he couldn't get out of that one. when I got involved, I said to him, immediately, issue that ignorance of proceedings form, um, and then immediately contact the traffic enforcement department and ask for evidence of the driver, right? And the magistrate in court said to him, I appreciate you asked for evidence of the driver. However, had you have done that within that 28 days, I would have considered that under section 172. It's subsection 4 of section 172 that states that you're not guilty of an offence if you can't, provide those driver details. So if you're saying, well, until you show me a picture of the driver, I don't know if it was me, my wife, my brother, my mate, or maybe even a cloned vehicle, maybe even not my car. So show me your evidence, prove your claim. And of course they can't. So, if you do it the correct way, if you want to follow the route of, challenging it in the court, if you do it the correct way, then you will be found not guilty,
Can I ask about the photos themselves? Is photos evidence?
Well,
No.
not really, because obviously photos can be doctored, and also the quality of those photos are nowhere near good enough. I mean, I've seen these things. We're talking about taking a picture from about 50 yards away, with the sun shining on the windscreen, or the clouds, reflecting off the windscreen in a darkened interior where you can't get any kind of detail.
Right.
So you can barely tell if it's a man or a woman driving.
So I mean, if photos are not evidence, then presumably they need real people as witnesses, don't they?
That's what I was going to actually say, that a photograph can never be primary evidence. Yeah, because it needs a living man or woman to be a witness. That actually comes from the Old Testament. I think it's Deuteronomy 19:14 or something. Out of the mouths of 2 or 3 witnesses shall a matter be decided.
There you go.
There needs to be living man or woman who has first-hand knowledge of the situation. A photograph can support a witness statement, but it can't be primary evidence of its own, because there's any number of reasons why an image might look like you or look like your car, but not actually be your car. So,
yes.
Yeah.
So one of the worries then must be that if you're buying one of these new EV cars, or even any modern car that might have facial recognition, or if hell prevent us having digital IDs, therefore your car and you would be associated with the car in the future, and these smart motorways would go, oh yes, you have signed into your car is driving at this speed, it's picked up by this camera, and all those things effectively make the jurisdiction
the cameras will
impossible.
be internal, won't they?
Yeah, and they'd be able to see you, as you're driving, and see the speedo.
But once again, right, the reason why there are cameras and or photographs that get sent to you with these offences is to urge you to confess, because as I said, the picture itself isn't evidence. Okay. Yeah. So it's only there to urge you to confess. You see the picture, go, oh, you got me. Okay, there's the picture. Right.
And it's fear.
Yes. Yeah. So literally all these other things, the fact that you signed into the car, so they know that you were in the car, and there's the pictures of you inside the car, right? And the timestamps match and all that. Again, that's all there to urge you to confess. Yeah, I mean it's pretty good and substantial, but again, there's any number of reasons why it might not be you that's in the car at that moment. They say the offence took place.
Yeah, and I suppose
Can I just add some psychology? The confessions that people do are based on shame and guilt, and that shame and guilt comes from their schooling most of the time. And so what we need to do to be the remedy, we need to clear the shame and guilt from our system. And then you'll be able to think more clear-headedly that you haven't done any wrong, and that the system is trying to trick you, quite rightly, as Dave says, into confessing. We're being nudged, we're being encouraged all the time to feel the shame and to appease the gods using confession. And those clever, well, I was going to say clever clogs, that's supposed to be us, but those people who say, I'm a living man, I'm a living woman, they're actually confessing. They don't realizing it, because they're not going into question mode, they're going into claim mode. And you can't back up a claim that you're a living man if you're writing. You know, it's almost it's a waste of effort, because if you're writing, that means you're hearing them, and if you're hearing them, you can't be a living man, because a living man or woman wouldn't be responding; they'd be doing something else. So, so everybody's getting very confused, and in some cases, understandably, because it's all very, very complex potentially. But the simple remedy is to know that they're trying to trick you using the guilt and shame that they put into you at school.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much for that. I think we'll move on if we can. There's a couple of people in the chat room who've got questions here. One is, I'm not quite sure if I completely understand this. If 6 points endorsed and followed 3-letter process, when doing the statutory declaration, how do you go about it when you're asked for name, date of birth, address, and how to plead, aiming to give no jurisdiction? Did you understand that?
Sort of, but
I understood that.
I think
I understood that.
Excellent.
So basically, what this person's saying is they've done the 3-letter process, which I assume is the notice of conditional acceptance, knock letters or something, and then it's gone to court, and they I assume they didn't know it had gone to court, in which case they can still issue the statutory declaration. In relation to what name should I put? Look, what people have got to understand is you're either a living man or you are your straw man. Okay. If you are a living man, you can't speak to dead entities. It's a simple fact. It's a rule of life. You can't speak to the dead, and they can't speak to you. So by speaking to them, you immediately declare yourself as a dead entity. Okay, you're speaking their language that they created in the world of the dead. Yeah, dead entities and legal fictions, right? So if you're entering their court, right, and you don't, because you don't want points on your license, and you don't want to fine, and you don't want to go through that hassle, then you have to give your straw man's name. You can't come into my house and start stamping your feet and claiming your own jurisdiction. There are rules in my house, my rules and my wife's rules in this house. And it's our jurisdiction. When you walk into a court, as soon as you step in, that's their house. Okay. If they say take your slippers, take your shoes off, then you have to take your shoes off. What they do is they say you have to stand, in which case you stand, right? Because you've already accepted their jurisdiction. Arguing with them is not going to do you any favors, and pissing them, sorry, my language, pissing them off is also not going to do you any favors. If anything, that's going to get the judgment going against you. So I appreciate that people are wanting to say, well, I'm not standing as my straw man, even though I'm living in my straw man's house, using my straw man's bank account and the car my straw man bought, and et cetera, But that aside, if they're saying I'm a living man, then just don't go into their courts, okay? And just ignore everything from them. But if you want to be able to drive without being pulled over every 5 minutes by police and arrested for driving whilst disqualified and thrown in a cell and going through that process so many times until they finally put you in prison, then you need to do it right, okay? Which is, I say right, obviously in air quotes. You need to do it how they expect you to do it. And what you're saying is, I am staying in honor, right? I I genuinely don't know who the driver was, because it could have been me, or it could have been my wife, or it could have been me, or it could have been my brother. Obviously, in the hypothetical, I said my brother, because my brother's a similar build, short hair or shaved head, you know. So even if they had their best quality image, I could still say, well, that still doesn't prove that it's me or my brother, right? So it puts them in an impossible. And Dave was right. It's not evidence that it just supports their claim, right? So if they've got an image that is like 4K quality, that is clearly you, and you can even see, you know, the mole on your cheek kind of thing, and they can, then that is strong supporting evidence for them to find you, to convict you. Okay, but they can't do that. They haven't got that technology at the moment to get it that sharp from, you know, 50 yards.
But I mean, even if they did, sorry to interrupt you, Dave.
Yeah.
I mean, even if they did, I mean, I did write a letter for a friend. We didn't fill in the form, and I wrote the letter saying, give us the evidence, and they sent pictures. And I says, nice pictures of cars, but give me the evidence, you know, because in that picture, you said we're going at 70 miles an hour in a 60, and that picture is of a car doing nothing, stationary. It's just a stationary picture. So there's no evidence. And we said, where's your witness statements? But I also said, you know, that car could easily have been, I actually said, the motion picture industry has been manipulating photographs for our entertainment for years. So, you know, how do you prove that's not just being manipulated? And
in most cases,
they went quiet.
They did go quiet. I was going to ask. You had no response.
No response whatsoever.
In most cases, it's from static cameras anyway. So it's generally from behind, which is just a car bearing a similar number plate to yours.
Yeah.
You know?
Are they not bringing other cameras in, though, that are so clear that they can see whether you've got your seatbelts on, whether you're on your phone?
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. It's still a photograph.
Because, again, even if it's a photograph and it looks like you can say, oh, that looks very much like me.
My clone.
But do you have any evidence it's me?
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Because again, it's a camera, so you know.
And especially with AI and all the.
If it's a witness, though, if it was a witness, you could go to court and say, "I call the witness. I want to cross-examine the witness. I want to, you know, what clothes was I wearing? Did I have whatever? Yeah.
Well,
but you can't do that to a camera.
You raise a very good point, because you should be able to defend yourself, and if the photograph is that's it. How do you defend? Well, I'd like to talk to the photograph, please, or the camera. Bring the camera in.
Bring in the camera.
And you can't talk to. And so, can you show me any more evidence? Can you prove to me? Were you really there?
Yeah.
Sorry, I can't hear you, camera.
Can I add something?
Yeah, cool.
There's an urban myth that, or a legend, a man was being interrogated by the police, and the police held up an image of the man and asked the man, "Is that you?" And the man said, "No, that's a photo."
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how good, what the quality of the image will be in the future. It will make no difference. Totally agree with allegedly Dave. The photo, even if it's the best photo that anyone ever took of anyone, it will only be a photo, and it will not be primary evidence. It will need a confession or a human witness to support it.
Yeah. No, I think that...
To answer the question there, because what it sounds like, because he mentioned making a plea, it sounds like he got what's known as a single justice procedure notice. So that notice basically says, you know, we're going to take you into our single justice procedure. How do you plead? So it's really just a rubber stamping exercise to bypass the court. Okay, so you know, it's like a streamlined. You know, we'll get you convicted. You know, a lot quicker. Right. So.
And you'll get a reduction for doing it.
Right. So the point is, and what they don't tell you is, you've got the right to decline their procedure. Yes. You don't have to go along with it if you don't want to.
I'm sorry, there's no case to answer. Thank you very much.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Rather than make a plea, you say there's no case to answer. right?
Yeah.
And
I've obviously
that's
listened
it.
to you far too much, Dave.
So literally, the single justice procedure goes away because you've declined it, and you're saying you're not going to plea anyway. So that's when they will then refer it to a magistrate's court.
Right.
But the way I deal with this is to avoid, having to go to court at all.
Yeah.
Because once you get into those places, all bets are off. There's so many ways that you can be tricked and fall into one of their pitfalls. So I literally go through a process. I don't know if you want me to go through it now.
Well, go on. Is it,
So yes, how long will it take?
is it a long process?
I'm only about 4 or 5 minutes. I'm just going to go sort of high level.
Okay. Let's have high level allegedly done.
Ready, steady, go.
Right. So you get their notice of intended prosecution. You send the first in the 3 notice process, basically asking, the relevant questions about, can you prove that I was there? You can say, I have no record of being at that place on that date at that time. Yeah. Do you have any evidence? I see you sent a nice photograph. It bears a striking resemblance to my car, but is it my car? Have you got any evidence? And so on and so on. Right. So you go through the 3 notices. The next notice basically says, look, you haven't answered. Let me give you more time. And the 3rd notice is, well, you failed to provide evidence of your claims. Therefore, you don't have any claims. And if you want to continue talking about this, I'm going to be charging you this much for each bit of communication. And that's the 3 notices. And if they start responding again, then you send a courtesy letter with an invoice for each time they communicate with you. But on the other side, they have a flowchart kind of response route that they have. So the first way, if you don't play ball, is that you get taken to court without your knowledge, and that's where the stat deck comes in. According to Magistrates Court Act 1980, Section 14. If you didn't know about the proceedings, they were void. So you send in the stat deck saying, I didn't know there was a court case. So that court case has been reversed. But then they'll try and get you to agree to another court case. But that's not your job, nor is it the court's job. That's up to the police, because they're the one bringing the claim in the first place, right? It's not your job to say, well, I want a different court case. I want a new court case. No, now that the case has been reversed because the procedure wasn't followed, and you weren't notified. Well, it's up to the police to reinitiate the court case. Right. So they'll try and trick you into agreeing to another court case. So the point is, if you've gone through the three notice process, you've already had a court case. What's supposed to happen, right, when you're dealing with another party and you've got a disagreement, you're supposed to try and work out and resolve the disagreement before it gets to court. That's what you're supposed to do. And then if you can't come to a resolution, then you go to the public expense of having a court case about it. Okay. But you're supposed to try and work it out beforehand. So you sending these 3 notices are you trying to resolve the matter. But the other party, the police, are always going to be non-responsive. Okay. So if it comes to the fact that you get taken to court, you can actually submit your pack. So you, at the end of it, you're going to have a pack of your notices and their responses and their notices, right? All in sort of date order. And you can submit that pack or a copy of that pack into the court as evidence. And you can say 2 things. And this is for a application of summary judgment. You can say, first of all, the court hasn't got any jurisdiction over this because in my notice of conditional acceptance, it said, I agree. I agree to these charges. on the condition that you provide me the following evidence. Okay. Court is about two parties disagreeing. Right. So if both parties are in agreement, there's no case for the court to adjudicate on because they've agreed. Yeah. So that's subject matter jurisdiction the court doesn't have. The other point is the court case has already been settled. You ran a court case and they failed to provide evidence, and so their claim doesn't stand. So it should be, if you go to court, the very first thing that you have to deal with is the fact that there is an application for summary judgment on the table, and that should be, action first, right? If it's not actioned and somehow they get past that, the next part is that the court case has already been settled, right? In the paperwork, refer them to the paperwork you put in, and if somehow it gets past that stage, well, the final thing is, okay, I just want all the evidence that I asked for in the first place, which they still don't have.
Yes.
And even as the black belt barrister, our enemy, as it were, he actually said himself, if somebody goes to court without evidence, the court can't rule in their favour.
Well, there you go. Then that's a damning piece, isn't it?
Yeah, I think I caught that on one of the responses he's made to one of your videos, and he actually said, if it goes to court without any evidence, the court can't rule in your favour.
Fantastic.
Thanks a lot, bald one.
Yeah.
Not you, but the other one.
No, the other one.
And can I say on the back of that, a lady called Angela Mean, she's been following you on YouTube, and it's been working. They stopped contacting her, so that's good news. We like happy stories.
Yeah. As I said, I've got a toolkit now where in the toolkit it's got a read me first document, and literally all you have to do is study that document because it tells you the whole process, what they're likely to do, how you counter what it is they do, and that's it. They've got a flow chart, and if you just keep blocking off their avenues on their flow chart, then they've got nowhere to go.
Excellent. Brilliant. Thank you so much, Dave. We are coming up to the first hour, which we sort of behind the scenes suggested we would do about cars, and then we would have a bit of a free-for-all.
Yeah. I've got one. Somebody at the very beginning asked a question about
Go
cars.
for
I think so I wrote it down. If I don't have a driving license, how could I go about attaining one to travel? Would I need to find someone who can teach me? Bit of a strange question, that, but
To teach you what?
to drive.
Well,
So they obviously want to get a driving license, but they don't want to go through the legal way. They want to be able to drive. Maybe they want their dad or their friend to teach them to drive, and then would they be free to drive, but they won't get the official license, I guess.
Well,
I mean,
but how will they be able to drive on the UK roads? This is the problem, because
to get picked up.
I appreciate that lots of people say, oh, but under, the Magna Carta or whatever, we have a right to travel, but we don't have a right to trespass. And being that all of the roads are claimed or to be owned by the state, right? They have terms and conditions for you to drive on them. They don't have any terms and conditions saying that you are entitled to travel, without license or whatever. It's their role, their roads. They set the rules.
I thought they were public roads.
Roads.
Well, it depends how you look at the public. They're an arm of the Crown Corporation who ultimately claim ownership of the roads.
Well, I'd love the Crown Corporation to prove that they own it. Where's the bit of paper that says who did they buy it from?
We own it. How can we prove we own it? We didn't build it. We didn't
yes,
commission
we did.
it.
Oh.
No, we didn't. We didn't. I didn't build any road. I didn't build a single road.
Nor did the politicians. Yeah, it was our ancestors that built the roads, not the politicians to say we built it, so now you have to pay us to travel on it. No, they're the public roads, and we have a right. We have a right to access the public roads in our private capacities. Okay, the only function of government is to regulate commerce. That's it. Okay, regulate commerce. As far as the roads are concerned, regulate commerce upon the public roads, because they're instituted essentially to prevent business from interfering with our right to access the public road. And if you can imagine it, if businesses were allowed to work to run roughshod over the public roads, then you wouldn't be able to use it for all the trucks and all the things happening on the road. So government was instituted to regulate commerce on the public road. What they've done is tricked us all into believing that we're all in commerce. That's it. Okay. The government do not have any ownership of the public roads. The fact that they screen off part of the road to be a bus lane, well, that's not allowed either. They can't do that. It's our road. They can't say, well, you can't go on that part of the road. No, that's rubbish. Yeah.
So therefore, I mean, I think the Romans built the roads, didn't they, initially?
Yeah.
Well, there were roads before the Romans were.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, animals. I mean, animal trackways created paths.
And they claimed ownership of those roads.
And horses.
Well, they weren't then asking the animals or anybody else to, can I see your license, please, Mr.
No, but horses still have the right of way, don't they? Horses still have the right of way over cars. And but
can I butt in?
Butt in.
Go on, butt away.
There's no such thing as a license to travel. That's just ridiculous. So what it is there's been a, dare I say, conspiracy. There was an MP about 10 years ago said there's no legal requirement for a driving license. It's an irrelevance. But if you wish to transport on the public highways passengers or goods for commercial purposes, you will need a license. And what they've done is they've tied up the insurance. They've tied us up in knots. So it's really an insurance issue. But even then, driving without insurance, in inverted commas, is not really a police matter, because insurance is covered by the Motor Insurers Bureau. So we're being gaslit constantly. And if you look at your passport, it says no agent, no Crown agent can hinder you, I'm paraphrasing, you from getting from A to B. So they are committing crimes, highway crimes, and in fact, highway robbery, if it turns out that they want to fine you for traveling. So that's highway robbery, and it's personage, and it's baratry, and it's all kinds of crimes. But because we're full of shame and guilt, we're the ones that feel that we're the criminals when we're not. It's the agents that are the criminals. Most of them don't realize it, of course. But the issue is, how do we stand? How do we best stand on our unalienable right to travel? That's the issue. The issue is not whether we have one. The issue is, how do we best assert it? And it's going to be a numbers game. When enough people realize that they have an unalienable right to travel, then we will be asserting it. Otherwise, on a case-by-case basis, it's difficult and it's fraught with risk.
So therefore, this person that asked a question, Jen, bearing in mind this program, your show is for entertainment purposes.
Oh, full of entertainment. And not necessarily advice, I don't know, protection here. But what would you, Clever Clog, suggest to this person to go out and not have not do it officially, not do it through the legal way, or just to get somebody that can teach her to drive and off she goes?
This is a difficult question, because what you're dealing with is an army, a private army of bully boys who will stop you at any opportunity, right? So and fine you and punish you for not following the rules. Well, not having a driving license, well, you can kind of get away with that for a long time, even though it's getting more difficult to get set up, because if you're going to get in a system, you have to take all of it. So you have to have insurance. Well, if you go and get insurance, you have to give them a driving license number, and if you don't give them a driving license number, you don't get insurance. So then, if you're traveling around without insurance, they're going to pick you up. So it's getting more and more difficult. But you think about it, 100 years ago, You didn't need a driving license. Anybody could jump in a Model T Ford or whatever, and learn how to make it go, and off they go on the road and travel wherever they wanted to. It's just that these fat politicians decide they can make money and they can levy an amount of control over us by putting in these bits of legislation. Sorry, Dave, you're going to jump in.
Yeah, there is a workaround that if you decide that you do want to get from A to B without being stopped, and this is a workaround that I'm using myself personally, is you find a trusted friend or relative who is more compliant than you are. They become the main policyholder and you are a named driver. And when you are a named driver, yes, you're compromising your principles, but sometimes people like me have to get from A to B without being stopped. It's more important for me to get from A to B than for me to be fully 100% behind my principles. Sometimes something has to give.
Choose your battles.
Although one day, hopefully, that will change. As soon as it can change, it will change. But you become a named driver, and in most cases, not in all cases, in most cases, you will not have to provide a license number. So that's something for people to consider. Be a named driver, or even better, an any driver. Find a friend who's got an any driver policy, and happy days. And then you've got a free pass to speed, because if it's any driver, there's no way anyone could tell who was driving.
And it was only about 20 years ago in Ireland that you didn't need a license at all. I remember going over there and we were picked up by somebody. I think she'd even had a few to drink, but she hadn't a license, and she was going all over the place. That was 20 years ago. And you think what legislation's now just gone into Ireland, Northern Ireland. There
was one more thing. So I ride an electric unicycle, and they're brand new. There's you don't see them around very often. Now my friend he nearly got killed by a police officer who tried to ram him off his wheel with their patrol car, and they tried to do him for no tax, MOT, and insurance and all that sort of thing, right? Trying to say that it's a motor vehicle and he was a driver, right? So this is kind of what I'm talking about. They've got legislation, but they want to have control over the road. And they've got to measure that control because public opinion, is sides with the police. So in order to keep that control, they try to impose the rules and regulations for drivers and motor vehicles on an electric unicycle. So they tried to prosecute my friend. I wrote a few letters and the prosecution went away because it's too difficult for them to use that legislation and wrap it around an electric unicycle. Though people who are on scooters, which tend to be a lot the younger crowd, well, they're getting somewhere with that because there's nobody standing up against it, and that's the way they work. If nobody stands up against it, they'll get away with it.
So it goes back to the whole thing about it being a numbers game.
Yeah, numbers.
The more people just go out and drive, and say, sod it, we'll drive respectfully, honourably. We're not going to cause a rumpus, but we're just not paying into your system. Thanks very much.
If two out of three cars on the road weren't insured and taxed, right, the whole system would fall apart, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Brilliant. Thank you very much to the questioner for that question.
Can I just, have a quick response?
Yeah.
Right. So what people need to understand, right, is that as people, as the public, we are considered by them to be dead entities, not living beings, okay? In a world of living beings, you could say nobody owns the roads. However, they've laid claim to them. Somebody owns that land and manages that land. Right, they use our blood, sweat, and tears to do it. However, that's of dead entities. How they manage to get you to, without you realizing, declaring yourself as a driver, right, acting in commerce, is because you require commerce to keep the car maintained, okay, to keep it filled up with petrol or diesel, there has to be a transaction, and transactions can only be completed by dead entities, and the dead entities, the legal fictions, are classed as drivers, so they're not classed as travelers. So only living beings have the ability to travel, rather than the unmolested, unless you're going to another country and basically it's stating, the passport is stating that, under the name of what was the Queen, now the King, give this person and again it's this person, the opportunity to travel without being, stopped or discriminated against or that kind of thing. Freedom of movement in that sense. But it's not true freedom of movement, because obviously certain countries you need a visa to access. Certain countries they won't allow you to access. So it's not all out freedom to travel.
But
I have to disagree a little bit here, because it's again, the government's mandate is regulating commerce on the road, right? You're not in commerce on the road if you're buying petrol. I know they put lots of taxes and stuff. You're not operating in commerce by buying petrol, right?
You are if you're a legal fiction.
Yes, but as far as regulating the road is concerned, right, you are operating commerce if you've got a license, if you've asked permission to go into commerce on the road, if you've got insurance, if you're paying tax, if you're acting as though you are acting in commerce, right? But buying petrol and everything else, no, right? Otherwise, why are we doing any of this? Because we're having to use their system to live, anyway, So
I'd like to just take up a point about this legal fiction stuff, because firstly, at legal fiction, you could say, well, go on in legal fiction, you go and fill up the car. And it can't do anything, as you say, it's a dead entity. So it needs a living person to actually take the nozzle off and put it in the car. It's a living entity, a living soul that's actually residing, sitting, pontificating,
you're
whatever.
You're classed as a human. You're classed as a monster. A human.
Well, I don't care what they class me as.
I know, but they're the ones with the police force. They're the ones.
Yes, of course, I get it. That they're the ones with the bigger sticks.
And that's what I'm saying. If you want to travel without being molested by them, without being handcuffed, without being dragged before a court, without having your insurance policy penalised, you've got to follow their rules. It's okay to say, oh, but I'm not acting in commerce, but because you're operating your straw man's vehicle, you didn't build it, so you don't own it as a human. Your straw man bought it.
But you're acting on behalf of the straw man, so the straw man can say, yeah, you can use my vehicle and you can drive. For example, I can carry a camera and take pictures. But it doesn't necessarily mean I am a professional photographer or earning a living from a photographer. I can sit in a car and go from here to there. It doesn't mean I'm a driver in their commerce world. I'm travelling, like travellers do in caravans and what have you. They seem to be exempt and get away with it all.
In legal dictionaries, if I can just interrupt just a second, in legal dictionaries, a driver is defined as someone who's employed to drive, self-employed or employed by another to drive. So it's employment. If you're simply going from A to B, doing a bit of shopping, visiting your friends, if they were being honorable, you could show them the legal definition, the legal dictionary definition, and they would have to stand by it and stand under it. But we're living, there's an element of truth in what Dave is saying, but what we need to admit is that it's their lack of honorability. It's not that they're right, it's that they are very, very wrong, but it's the kind of might is right principle, and they are not standing under their own rules, and it's proving more and more difficult to point out their wrongdoings and their deficiencies, because their narcissism is now off the charts. But in principle, driving and private traveling got nothing to do with each other.
Shall we? That was a nice,
heated
heated conversation, full of entertainment. This show.
Yes.
Appreciate the comments that are going on. Lots of interesting
Lots.
comments out there, which obviously we haven't got time to read, but you hopefully can. Karen, have you got another question to take us to somewhere
I've got a
different?
question. So I had so many people email me, and I would say if you do email me, instead of emailing me, come on the show and put the question there, because there's no way I can read all these, although I try to. So this one here is from a chap called Peter Brown. He said he's got a question for the Clever Clogs. As recommended in one of Richard's videos, he formed a dormant limited company using his full capitalised name. So the company name is James Peter. It doesn't really matter what it is it? This was formed on the 15th of April this year, 2024. I have the forms and certificates, etc., provided by Companies House. However, I have no idea how to use my company name to protect myself from the criminals which I'm trying to protect myself from, i.e. the council and the bailiffs. So, given that company I formed uses my full name, what do I now call myself, and how are others expected to address me? I hope I'm not being thick, he says. Oh, they've all gone quiet.
They've all gone quiet. Well, it depends what he wants to do, I suppose.
It's not my method, really. So, you know.
I mean, I've had the Hornsey chaps on the show who were talking about this, and one of the things was saying, well, you could put your car, your V5, in the name of your limited dormant company, so that if somebody comes along and threatens to take your car, it will be a company car owned by a company, not owned by the license person.
Yeah.
So therefore, they wouldn't be able to take it. That was one thing. I think also they were talking about trademarking the name. So if anybody wrote copyright infringement with your capitalised name, although that you could do that, I guess, without having to. But the limited company thing, as far as I understand it, is the name that you think you have, which you have in capitalisation, which you've set up your bank account, passport, etc., is owned by the Crown.
Yeah.
But by making it a limited, that you've claimed that name for yourself. That's as I understand it.
Don't you have to hyphenate it, like your first?
I don't think you have
name?
to on not because you
told
don't.
that before.
I'm not,
Something about this type of remedy is, these things can work. There's a lot that can work, but you're not exiting the matrix with remedies like this. You're just making your life a little bit more comfortable, and there's a huge difference.
Right.
I'm not criticizing it. I'm not knocking it. As long as we're conscious of where we are and what we're doing and why we're doing it, then all's fair in love and war. But ideally, we're aiming higher than this. That's all I would say. If it works, great. But I think we can aim even higher. That's all I would say.
Yeah. I mean, go on, Dave.
Oh, sorry. My comment. My comment would be, from the grumpy old man perspective, as James Delingpod would tell me, if you've gone ahead and done this and you don't know why did you do it?
Well, there is that. Yes.
Yeah.
You know, so it goes back to what I was saying.
Yeah.
People think there's quick fixes out there, so they go off and do it. They don't know why they're doing it or how to use it. They just know, well, if I do this, I'll be golden. Yeah, but
somebody told me to do it. Great point. Yeah. Great answer. And we're not just poo-pooing these, are we? We hopefully,
no, absolutely. I mean, I've had so many people on the show with so many different processes and ways of tackling things, and I remember them coming on. I think they came on twice. And they spoke about it, and I was a little confused myself, and I had to sort of speak to one of the guys privately to get it fully into my head what the purpose was. But it seemed to be about claiming your name or claiming a bit of space within, as David Edelman said, within the matrix that they can't get hold of. But I think, as he so rightly says, you want to aim so that we're out of it altogether.
Yeah.
Should we do another question?
Yeah. Just somebody has been contacting me from Norway, and I just did ask that at the beginning. But the laws in Norway, does anybody have any idea? Would they be the same as the laws here? She's talking about promissory notes and all sorts of stuff. I sort of cut it short, but I just thought I'd throw that in. If you're not in the UK,
notes will be. Promissory notes definitely will be, because they're covered under international trade. They're the Bills of Exchange Act is basically incorporated, certainly by all Western countries. There may be some slight differences. It's worth checking the legislation in your own country. But the Bills of Exchange Act in the UK is is what sets out the rules of trade, of commerce, of exchange of goods and services, and paying for that. So it's worth checking your own legislation and even comparing it against the UK legislation. But they will be acceptable. It's just that I know that in India, they obviously have promissory notes in India, but there's a 3-year limit on, so a maximum of 3 years before they expire. So as I say, in different countries it might be different. In this country, there's no expiry date as such. There's just a date that either you put a date on the note that says, this expires on this date or by this date, or it should be it's actually in the Bills of Exchange Act 1882 Part 4. It states that as at a fixed or determinable period of time. So if you said that I'm making monthly payments on a payment scheduled promissory note, where you're paying each month, but the promissory note is worth its full face value from day one, then you can calculate if they collected those payments when the expiry date would be. It's based on them, so that would fall under determinable or fixed or determinable period of time. So as I say, check in your own country for your own version of the Bills of Exchange Act, right, and read the section relating to promissory notes, and it should give you all the information.
We'll go. Thank you, Davey. We'll go to allegedly Dave in 1 second. I just want to. Somebody's just asked. Tales from Wales says, "Can you talk about One Planet development in Wales?" Just want to assure you, I've recorded a video about that subject, which will go out over the weekend. So do check the website. Dave, allegedly Dave.
Yeah, I was just going to say that amongst all Commonwealth countries, there is a version of the Bills of Exchange Act, 1882. But so that's all Commonwealth countries. Internationally, it still comes under UCC 3, I think it is. As Davey says, it is international. The only thing is, I'm not sure if all the provisions that we have in the Bill of Exchange Act are covered in the same way in UCC 3. We've also got certain case law that backs up the use of promissory notes. Yeah. As far as Norway's concerned, I'm not even sure if it's part of the EU, but if it is part of the EU, the fundamental difference between the lawful system of the UK and the EU is that they run Napoleonic law, which means you are guilty until proven innocent, which is a fundamental change from supposedly the system that we run here.
Yeah. Well, it seems to be what they think over here now, isn't it? That we're guilty till proven innocent.
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you very much, chaps. Another question?
Yeah, this is quite a big one. So this chap has been emailing me. We've been having a bit of a few email exchanges, and it was a long one. So I said, try and put it brief. So it's about, it's about the toxins in the water. So firstly, his question, he says, for the next show is it possible to represent myself in court as no lawyer is willing to take my case? How to find a lawyer to represent such important cases like national poisoning of the whole society? So the neurotoxins in the tap water and the heavy metals. Do I need to pay water bills if no contract was arranged with me? And can I refuse to pay if they installed a water meter against my approval? He then goes on to say, as the lawyers say, it's not their field of expertise. What expertise do they need if the evidence is clear that these substances have harmed my health? And he's got very poorly from this. For example, fluoride is a poison and a neurotoxin, as are lead and aluminium. Peer-reviewed studies, including those from the Lancet and the WHO, confirm this, support this. So why do lawyers not want to take this case? Are they incompetent or part of a corrupt system or simply afraid of the government?
You know that they're putting fluoride into milk.
Into milk?
Into milk.
Not your raw milk.
Not raw milk.
No,
in a
into milk.
Blackpool school somewhere is putting fluoride and offering it to kids at school.
And I did a little interview with a dentist the other day, a laser dentist, and I asked him about fluoride, and he wasn't supportive.
No, I'm not
in
surprised.
Milk, goodness me.
Dave has got his hand up.
Allegedly.
So, well, we've got a letter back from Essex and Suffolk Water, where they actually listed all the chemicals they put in the water, including hexafluorosilicic acid, which is fluoride. Okay, where it actually said requested by Public Health England, which means if Public Health England requested Essex and Suffolk Water to put it in, that means they've requested every water company to put it in. Okay, because they're not targeting people in Essex, right? So, so the list of stuff that they put in the water is quite extensive, and when you look up what they do to the human body, it's shocking. It's absolutely totally harmful. So my approach essentially is to it's basically write to them and say, I'm happy to pay your charges, but I note that it is all this stuff that you put in your water. Unless you can prove to me otherwise that you don't put any of this stuff in your water, it'll be assumed that you do put this stuff in your water, and I have to go through a process of distillation, carbon filtration, any other way you can think of to add to it.
Reverse osmosis.
Yeah,
reverse osmosis
system, yeah.
In order to make the water drinkable. Right, my costs are £450 a month. Right, I'll happily pay your costs if you pay mine. My post-delivery water treatment costs. Okay, yeah. If you end up, step back a second. He's not going to find a lawyer that's going to take this on because the lawyers work for the Crown. Okay, so they're not going to work against their own, their own company, as it were, their own, their bosses. So. The only way you're going to do it is if you go, you stand as a litigant in person and you take it on yourself. And one of the things I suggested somebody else to do is, I don't know if you can see this, but this is 3 months of the stuff that I scraped out of the bottom of my water distiller.
What's it? Residue?
Okay. Residue from my water distiller. Yeah. From
your distiller, yeah.
And when I first scooped it in there, it smelled horrible. No idea what was in it. In fact, I wouldn't touch it with my bare hands because I don't know what the hell is in that stuff. Okay, so I would invite the CEO of the water company to come along, and I'll get some distilled water. I'll pour some of this residue in there, which he says is safe to drink. Okay, and ask him to drink it in court because he says it's safe. He's not going to drink it because he knows what
drink. I mean, I suppose he's got to take it on face value that you've actually scraped this stuff off your thing. But even if you did that in court, he's not going to drink it, is he? So,
no,
so the
not.
Poor chap has unless he takes it in.
Mm.
I mean, ultimately, he has got to stop drinking the water. And does he drink the water?
Well, he has been drinking the water, and now he's very sick.
Yeah, so he's better off buying the devices and then not paying the bills.
Yeah,
and doing as Dave said.
But he wants to take the water company. He wants to take them to the cleaners. Yes. Basically.
You could sue them, but taking criminal action against them won't work because the courts are so corrupt and so. These are decisions by governments at the end of the day, and who work for the Crown. On behalf of the Crown, as do the courts. So if you're taking, the action against them, then they're going to try and subvert that somehow, whether lawfully or otherwise. So they just simply wouldn't get it that far. What you could do is you could sue them potentially for, damage, if it's making them ill. Take out a claim against them, and do it that way. So you wouldn't be able to necessarily do it as in getting them prosecuted for, a criminal offence of what they're poisonous with, but you may, and it's a very loose may, have some success if you, as Dave says, are a litigating person, or pro se as it's known. It's you know, you're going to have difficulty, especially in proving that your illness is directly related to that water. Your
Unless I
best
suppose
bet,
a doctor or somebody
Yeah.
can say
yeah,
actually
that's
without
right, but they're
date.
just
Yeah.
as corrupt. And
Yeah.
so your
Yeah.
best
Yeah.
bet is to just invest in a water distiller. We only drink in our house distilled water. We don't drink tap water. And as I absolutely agree with Dave, you know, my distiller, I have to clean it out regularly. It literally forms hard coating, which, as
Yeah.
when I pick it up in sheets where it falls off, it crumbles. It's just horrible. It's really,
Yeah. No one wants
and
to.
That's
it's
going inside
disgusting.
you.
Yeah, that's going. You're processing that.
Dave,
So invest.
David Edelman wants to come in. David.
I don't know if anyone's familiar with the movie Idiocracy,
Yeah,
but in that film, 500 years into the future, water only refers to sewage water, toilet water. It doesn't refer to drinking water because they've stopped using water as a drink 500 years into the future. That's where we're heading. So what I would do is, taking up Dave's idea, is ask them in a question, in a conditional acceptance, are you claiming that this water is potable? If so, please substantiate your claim. And to remain in honour, what I will do is I'll offer you 10% of your bill towards sewage, towards, toilet drainage. But certainly won't be paying until you can prove that it's potable.
And can
And,
you define potable?
Potable is drinkable,
Drinkable.
safe to drink.
Right. Okay. Excuse my ignorance.
Yeah.
I'm
Oh,
quite
no
surprised,
problem.
Richard.
And I wouldn't be.
Well, I thought it was
wouldn't
like potty, you know,
Well,
potty
it could
training.
be, yes.
I'm not
Other
gonna
end,
drink-
yeah.
Not
be,
going to drink.
I wouldn't be wanting to reimburse them for sewage either, since they've started to, and they've very publicly started to pump raw sewage straight into the sea. Then
Yeah.
why are we paying for that?
Yeah.
We could do that ourselves.
Yeah, I
couldn't
could
we?
do that, especially down here on the coast.
Well, because I know a lot of ladies that do the wild swimming whilst, you know, they go out in the sea throughout the whole year, but a lot of them, I was one of those, won't go there anymore. Too many things floating around and stuff. It's
I got to go, guys. Thank you.
See you later. See you at
thanks.
the weekend at where are we going? Canterbury.
Yeah, Canterbury. All right.
Yeah, see you then.
David.
Bye,
Bye,
Dave.
Well,
Bye, Dave.
Bye.
Well, that's a nice time to pause and talk about what's going on at the
Yes.
weekend, which is the day after tomorrow as we do this show live, but it will be the 19th and 20th, or the 20th?
It will be
Is
the
it
19th and 20th of October
in Canterbury.
at the Garlinger Theatre.
At the what theatre?
Garling? Is that, no, have I got that wrong?
I've no idea.
Garlinger.
Is
Yeah.
there parking there?
I think so. I think it's a bit out of the sticks, actually. I think it was a proper theatre, but they don't use it for theatrical. Well, you'll be there, so you'll be doing your
Thanks.
stuff, won't you? But yes, there's parking there, and there's going to be you there, and the 3Ds tonight, they're going to be there. Chris Coverdale, Pete the Hat, Pete Stone, and Gunston.
It's a 2-day affair. Isn't
It is. It
so
is.
what are we doing for 2 long days? I mean, it's hard enough doing 2
Yes,
hours.
I know. We're going to be. It's again audience sort of led. I think the whole idea of this, isn't it, is to chat with the audience and see what questions they have.
Yeah.
Which camera am I? That one. So that's the idea, for the audience to come along with questions, and we've asked them, those that have contacted me, kizzy63@pm.me, Proton Mail. A lot of people said they haven't heard from me, or the emails have gone astray. So if that is the case, I'm sorry, I've replied to all of them apart from today's. And if you still want to go, there's plenty of tickets. You can come to the gig, pay on the door. It's upset a couple of people because it's a vegan only venue. I mean, that's not our doing. They just don't want any animal products there. So that's upset a couple of people. So I'm not going because it's vegan. I thought, well, that's up to you. But if you want to learn,
Well, I may well bring some burgers to eat in the van.
you
Is
have,
that
yeah,
okay?
you have to look through the window. We'll watch you eating your burgers through the fan.
And saliva.
And saliva,
Yeah.
and your raw
Salivate.
milk. You're salivating with your raw milk. milk with the fluoride in it. No, you're not.
No,
gonna
I
be
wouldn't
doing
be salivating.
No.
You'd be salivating
Yeah.
at me eating. Anyway, whatever.
that. So we're going to be answering the questions, and then all the clever clogs are going to have, I don't know, 34-minute presentation to talk about their expertise, and we might have a little bit of role playing at the end as well.
Brilliant.
So yeah, I think it's, when we've done these before, you and I have done a couple. I think this is the fourth or fifth one. Oof, there's a lot of information. It's overloaded with information, to be honest. So I very crudely record it, and I put it up on my little channel. If anybody wants to record it, they're welcome to, because there's just so much information. So that's the plan, from 10 till 4 or 10 till 5, Saturday and Sunday.
So there you are, if you're in the area. Somebody's just asked there, Kenneth has just asked, when might we see Richard Vobes visit York, North Yorkshire, God's own country? That's a good question. If somebody could organise a trip for me up there, that'd be very nice. I have been to York. It's very
lovely. Viking place, isn't it? Yeah, very, very nice.
Make sure I got the little horns sticking
Yeah,
out my hat.
little crown as well, isn't it?
Apparently
Crown,
it's
yeah.
absolute rubbish. They didn't have that, so I'm told.
Didn't have horns.
But they might have been horny. Anyway...
Horny in Yorkshire.
Be careful what you say.
Or,
so we've got just under 25 minutes or so left to answer any of your questions.
yeah, I don't know if any more have come up there. But
I collected a couple of questions earlier on. Let me just see. Why is the British Parliament claiming to be sovereign when they are clearly not? That's a nice question. Who would like to answer that one? David Edelman. Oh no, he's just
he's gone. Yeah.
They're a bunch of liars, that's why.
That's it. Well, there we are.
Entertainment only
They're
show.
a bunch of liars. If you didn't catch that, that was Davey. Allegedly, Dave.
Well, I don't know if anybody caught what Brian Gerrish has been talking about for the last few years. He's been talking about common purpose.
Right.
Common purpose has been insidiously sort of getting into government departments and agencies and stuff, and essentially telling them that they've got more power than they actually have, and that they're the masters, and we're the errant children that need looking after. Okay, so I think their tagline is something like "Beyond Authority."
Oh,
So-
right. That's a nice tagline.
Very
Beyond
good, very-
authority. Who gave them the
Wow.
Who gave them the authority to be beyond
They
all
did,
that
probably,
authority?
yes.
Right.
It's just
So for
outrageous.
generations, they've been acting as public servants, and
Right. Beyond authority.
But lately, they've been sort of been given this idea that they're the ones with the authority, and we're sort of poor little children that need their help and guidance. So over the last few decades, and probably a lot longer, they've been moving very slowly from the public servant model to the public master model.
Oh, nice.
So yes, they think they're sovereign. They're not. They only have the authority that we give them, and that's it. If we withdraw our authority, they're going down.
And isn't that something that we must keep reminding them, that we, the people, are the ones with the authority, and it's only by the grace of us
Yes, that
giving
they're there.
that they're there, because otherwise they'll just keep taking.
But it's
Yeah.
interesting. Sorry, go on, Dave.
I was going to say, unfortunately, though, again, comes down to public opinion.
Yes.
Yeah, the muggles out there, the massive
Love
muggles
them.
out there, actually believe the government is our boss. The
Yeah.
government tells
Yeah.
us what to do.
Because they're there to protect us.
So again, public opinion is on their side.
Yeah.
So that is the reality. Yeah, and
I've-
we're out on the fringe who believe that, oh no, we're the masters.
Yeah. I've been watching, close your ears a minute, Richard, on Netflix. Sorry. Victoria.
Victoria
yeah,
what?
the
Victoria
Queen.
Wood.
Victoria Queen, the Queen
Vic-
Victoria.
Queen
It's quite
Victoria.
addictive.
I thought
and
she was dead.
She is dead, but
Oh.
they've done a Netflix series about her.
Oh.
I think it was on the telly. So I think it was
We
on
are
the TV.
not amused.
We're not- she did say that.
Did she say that?
She says that, and she's
Yeah.
they made her very beautiful and very petite. But it's very interesting if you can believe the bits. You know,
Well, I believe any of it. It's on the
exactly.
telly, isn't it?
But they talk about the Chartists, which is horrible, the Chartist movement, and hung, drawn, and quartered. But there's one moment when they talk about keeping the monarchy mysterious, so that
We want to keep the
keep
monastery.
them a bit. Keep the public don't know exactly what
Mysterious,
goes
not
on behind the scenes. But also, they do feel they have a beeline to God, don't they? If you look, was it the Japanese one? They are seen as gods, aren't they?
Are
in
they?
years gone by, and I think that's what a lot of the monarchy think they are, and a lot of people maybe think they are as well.
Oh,
but-
I am
The mon-
a
the
beeline
monarchy's-
to God.
The monarchy think they have the divine right to rule us because they have the
Divine.
blood of the gods.
That's right,
Yeah.
blue-blooded. Is it
Blood
blue-blooded?
of
Yeah.
Yes, blood of
That-
the
isn't that-
gods.
Isn't that linked to other creatures with cold blood, though? Blue blood. Or should we not
Essentially,
go there?
yes, because
What,
yeah,
lizards?
Oh, you had to spoil
Oh,
it.
did I say it? I mean, all sorts of amphibians, I assume, is what you're referring to, isn't it?
Yeah, well,
Possibly.
the gods that I'm talking about are the ones we've all heard of them. So the Greek gods, the Roman gods, the Egyptian gods, the Hindu gods, they're all the same characters. They're not gods, but they're something else. And these
Dogs
people
backwards.
They're God
Yeah.
backwards, aren't they?
Yeah,
they
backward
reverse
dogs.
everything. They're just dogs barking
So-
loudly.
But these people have their bloodline, so they feel that they have the divine right to rule over us, over the
And-
mere humans.
And for those that know the history of the royal family, it is interesting because they show you in Victoria. And if you go to Osborne House in the Isle of Wight, which is a fabulous day out actually, and you can see like the 7 offspring of Victoria and Albert, how they've all been married into various parts of Europe because it's all a scheme to take control. And it's a bit incestuous because they're all marrying cousins and stuff. It's all kept in the family, isn't it? So it's a bit dodgy in my opinion.
Well, do you know what? Do you know what the Anglo-Saxon word for the inhabitants of the Isle of Wight is?
Oh,
It's going to be
Uh-oh,
rude.
go on.
Go on.
White Satan.
well, I never. It is
Yeah.
very satanic, isn't it? Masonic, satanic. Yeah. Interesting. And certain people live there, don't they? Certain well-known people in this movement, allegedly.
Yeah, I
Dave.
wonder who that could be. I wonder who that could be.
It's
I
a
can't
night-
remember his
is it-
first name.
No,
It's the
but
name
is
that
it? What night is it tonight? It's the night of the Daves. The Dave.
Oh, the
Yeah.
Dave.
Yeah,
the Dave.
the night of
yeah.
the Dave. So there we go. We've just thrown him into the equation.
I'm just looking
Say
now
no
to
more.
see if we have another question
I've got a
from
question.
the. Have you got one?
Yeah, I've got one. I've got loads here. So this one, it
Yeah.
says, do you know anything about the common law court? So somebody's getting a bit distressed. He says, I've got documents from them, passport, birth certificates, etc. And later apparently the common law site has gone down. And he's heard nothing about it. And he's scared to use the documents as he's travelling abroad. That's why he's asking. That's Alex, he or she. Any knowledge about the common law courts? Whatever.
only that I tried to get in contact with John Smith and got nowhere with him. He didn't respond to me. I've had several people come to me who've got their documents and tried them and ended up in trouble and asked how do I deal with this. So no. It's unfortunate, but I don't think that went anywhere, to be honest.
I did have John Smith on the show. About 2 weeks ago, actually. So, and he was still very much on the case. I mean, I can't vouch for other than what he came on the show. I mean, I don't know him personally or anything like that. Seemed to come over very genuine and very wanting to help, and was very much saying, "This isn't my court. He's just part of the."
I've had lots of people contact me over the past couple of years that basically their comments about the common law courts are that they can't get any response either, so they're at a loss. So I think there's a common theme there. Maybe if they're still going, they need to sort out their systems.
Well, I can imagine that, once you get to a level of publicity, and I know what it's like with my inbox, you're flooded. And if if you're not paying a team to answer questions and queries and print stuff and send it all out, you're going to be overwhelmed and you're going to get, complaints. That's the problem of organisation, isn't it? And not earning
also,
enough money.
Are there not lots of common law courts? Okay, you've got the John Smith ones, and I know there was quite a hoo-ha back in the day. There was stuff going on there, wasn't there? But Dr. Barry, who's been on your show, on our Lawful Remedy, down under Australia, he's got common law courts. And isn't Sasha Stone, doesn't he have a common law court as well? So I thought they're scattered all over the place. I'm not too sure.
I'm
But what
imagining
they're
that
being
the
used for-
term is a sort
Common
of
law.
is a very generic term, and different people are probably applying the same principles to a court that's based on common
law.
principles.
And perhaps we need to unite.
Yes.
Perhaps that's and get our juries of 12 and all that.
One of the problems, it seems to me at the moment, is there's a number of these assemblies and groups and communities that have all set up, and they've all got their own rules and regulations or how they run. And I was at one that was set. I mean, I didn't join anything because I try and stay completely independent, which did annoy them a bit, because they said, well, why won't you sign up? And I said, well, it's like if I have somebody knocking on my door ringing me up, I don't sign up. I make that a policy that I'll take the information, I'll think about it, and then if I want to do something about it, I'll do it. Anyway, but one woman emailed in and said, there's so many of these. What organisation, what common law court, what community do you join? Because they all seem so scattered and they're all independent of each other, and so you can't see that any of them are actually got any gravitas to make a difference.
Yeah.
But I'm intrigued to know what sort of cases are being heard at these common law courts. What sort of cases are we talking about? Because we're not talking about alleged traffic offences and stuff like that. So what are they being used for? Are they being used as like the people's criminal courts?
I think that's what John Smith was saying, that people, famous names were being tried for things like medical intervention damage. But of course, these people don't turn up, so they're being tried in their absence. But what you can do,
exactly. They're found guilty, and then what do you do? Put them in a tree?
You've got no workforce of your own. You've got no holding cells or prisons of your own. So that's what I'm saying. It's like the principle of it. Obviously, it would be, what we need is for this current system to fall and collapse completely, revolution, and then introduce
create a new
common law courts.
That's a huge step, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I had an idea, right, that I tried to put in place for the Eastbourne Community Cooperative that I was part of. So it was essentially the I can't remember how we called it, but it was a dispute resolution service. Right. Okay, and essentially it was going to be a common law court, right? So it was going to be 12 people who were going to be, the jury as such, a judge who was just an organizer, just to make sure everything went smoothly, and the two parties involved get to speak, get to call witnesses, and get to sort of give an opening and closing statement, and then the jury of the community would decide on it. And I had the idea of the Judge Judy model. So essentially, the two parties of a dispute can either fight it out or go to, the public courts, or come to our court and agree to abide by the decision of the jury. So both parties say, we'll let the jury decide on our behalf, and agree to abide by that decision. So the idea was to actually just start it as a dispute resolution service in our cooperative, and then slowly just open it up to the wider public, let them know that there's this service available, and essentially morph it into the common law court. And to speak to what Davey was just saying about, when we got, if we got it to a level where we had enough exposure, then we could actually, have a trial for a public figure. My idea was to do Matt Hancock at the time, and invite him to come along, and or send counsel on his behalf, or we have somebody who really does believe that Hancock is innocent, and have the trial. And if he's convicted, and this is where I think the teeth comes in, we issue a public arrest warrant. Now that came out of, I don't know if you remember that Tony Blair got convicted in a common law court of war crimes and stuff, and as a result, I think he got arrested publicly 3 times. So when he went out in public, a member of the public would go to arrest him.
Wow.
I think it happened 3 times, and then he disappeared from public life. He never came out again, or he never came out, so that anyone would recognise him. So a public arrest warrant is actually very powerful, because if you imagine if a public arrest warrant was issued and everybody knew about it, every time that person showed their face, they knew they were going to get arrested by somebody.
It's a numbers game, isn't it? We keep coming back to this. It's definitely a numbers game. And I think that's why this show that we do, on your show, The Lawful Remedy, brings you guys together. You all have loads of people following you. And I think it's just like this jigsaw puzzle that we, coming closer and closer and closer together, that something can be done. I think it's a matter of time. I like to think that. I am a positive thinking person, but it's got to be a matter of time. But it's a numbers game. And the system is falling.
I like to think that we've got, at the moment, we've got loads of muggles that form public opinion at the moment that's against us. But very slowly, those numbers are coming over to our side. Yeah, and there will come a time where that balance is going to tip.
Yeah, definitely. Because when you do talk to people, or you're in a group of muggles, I don't really give my opinion anymore, because I'm sick of it. And I thought, if you don't know what's going on now, then
sick of your own opinion.
Sick of my own opinion. But when you try and turn people in the old days, we couldn't believe what was going on, and you were telling them the truth, and they just thought you were bonkers. But now there is just so much evidence. Even if you look up the skies and you see things, or there's random fires and hurricanes and what have you, people are asking questions. So then I might add to that, but I'll never ram it down their throats, because I think if you just ask questions, and they can answer those themselves, and they'll come to it themselves, because they can't be told, can they? I love the word muggles. They have to find out themselves. Same as being sovereign. You have to kind of experience yourself and keep trying.
Surely, I have no idea, but this obviously something I've thought about for a long time. But surely all of us that are awake to all the nonsense and the battering that we get, and exactly what Dave was just saying there about having a community in which you can have your own effective common law court or dispute resolution. Surely then the answer is that what we should all do, there must be, 500,000 of us spread out, right? If we could just reach us all and say, let's buy a big chunk of land, 2,000 acres or whatever, let's just all move on that land and set up our own place. And 500,000 people moving onto one piece of land and saying, we're ring fencing this is now our domain, this is our territory, stick a flag in.
I don't think that would work.
The answer to that, though,
go on,
the answer to that is Waco.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say the same.
The
taken out.
Media is going to portray us as like nutters, religious cultists, and dangerous.
But the Amish get away with it. The Amish managed to do it, and no one's
but they all follow
them
the same belief system. When you think you've got 500,000 people, they don't all agree with each other. No. I have different methods to Dave. He has different methods to me, and same as with other people.
Then aren't we hopeless? Aren't we, at the end of the day, are we never going to get out of this? If you've got meth and you've got meth, how are we going to...
No, we are going to get out. No, absolutely not, Mr. Babs. No, I think it's a case, it's like mycelium. We've all got to pop up all over the country, all over the world. And like when I set the Freedom Network up 4 years ago, I was inundated, absolutely inundated. There were like 500 hubs, and there were some hundreds or 10 or thousands of people in each group. They've all sort of faded away now, because a lot of people have got complacent, or they've joined Telegram groups or other groups.
But isn't that the problem with mycelium?
Yes, it is. Mushrooms, but it is. It's sort of a problem, but there are a lot of people that are still popping up, that are newly awakened, and that want to create communities, but not, I don't think, coming all together. We're little beads of light, we're little flames all over the world.
All right, so you, instead of 500,000 in one place, you had
5 there.
5 lots.
Or 500,
5 100,000.
We need 5,000 places with 5,000 in each of those places. That's the thing. We need to, because we would get taken out. If they all knew we were on that island, they'd blow the island up.
Because, ultimately, you could say, well, we'll just wait for the government to collapse in and all of that. Well, when's that going to happen? And then you've still got the problem of everybody going, but I want to run it this way, and I want to run it this way.
Yeah, and I don't like him because she said that and he did that.
But the Amish, they have got their own little area. They go around in their buggies. They all have the same sort of philosophy.
Yeah.
And they get on with it. I don't understand why you couldn't have not that sort of thing.
Well,
Our
that's the
problem.
crux of it.
Oh,
Sorry.
That's the crux of it. They all have the same belief system,
Yes.
the Amish. So therefore,
But most of
it's
us,
not an
most
issue.
of us have a similar belief system of do no harm and look after your neighbour.
Yeah, but we fall out with each other, don't we?
Yeah,
It's ego
that's
and
the
victims
problem.
and stuff.
What
Well, is
we
that
need-
worth not trying?
Yes, it is worth trying.
What we need to remember,
yes.
right, is that we're all chipping away at the system in different ways, all at the same time, right?
Yes.
Then eventually that system is going to collapse. There's no
And then
doubt
what?
about that. What we're doing is
We'll all be
bringing
dead,
that
won't we?
ever closer to happening. What replaces it remains to be seen, you
Yeah.
know. But and to be honest,
Yeah.
what replaces it could be worse than what we've got now, or it could be a utopia. So it comes down to educating people, continuing to educate people, which is what we're all doing, educating people and changing their mindsets, changing the way they deal with things, changing the way they do, normally they just, as we were talking earlier about cars, admit to them being the driver and therefore confessing, or ratting out their friend who borrowed their car, and
Yeah.
that kind of thing.
I mean, the biggest thing is to turn the telly off, isn't it?
Yes,
I mean,
telly's
that
massive.
would be
telly.
smash more
programmed.
TVs. That would be a good place to
Absolutely,
start, for
that's
sure.
massive.
Smash more TVs. It's probably you've got to go into people's private world.
And then you
to
can't
do
watch
it.
Netflix. But the other thing I think is to remember this is a spiritual war. I think
It is.
I think that is so important. It's a spiritual war, and if you understand, we are, souls with consciousness, a higher consciousness, and we're just walking around in this skin suit. That will disappear. But there's more to it than not paying your fines.
But the problem is that essentially we've all been ruined by television and media and films and Hollywood and all this stuff. Yeah, we don't know what it means to be human anymore. We don't know what it means to be in relationships anymore. We don't know because our minds have been destroyed by all this stuff. Yeah. So if the system was to fall apart tomorrow, our generations are going to have the hardest time of it, because we've built up egos around all this stuff that we've been fed all our lives, right? And essentially, the children that are alive today have got the best chance of surviving this, and their children will come into this world fresh.
As long as they've got their mobile phones and they've got access to the internet, then the
Yeah.
kids of the next generation will be fine, because they don't know how to build anything, create
Yeah.
anything, use their hands.
Cook.
They don't know how to survive on their own unless their mums and dads have paid for it or driven them here, there and everywhere. I totally agree.
I have a different view of that. I think that we all have the ability and knowledge to pretty much do anything. And yeah, if we lean on all this technology, no, we haven't got it. But if we had to, we can lean on our intuition, and our intuition would go, yeah, this is how you build it. This is how you do this.
Yeah.
This is how you make a water drainage system. Yeah. Because
Well, that
we've
would
got
be
that
good
knowledge.
if our intuition hadn't been poisoned by the chemicals from the sky and the fluoridation of the water and the EMFs and all the other things
Exactly.
that have been. I mean,
They're doing a great job. You've got to give it to them.
Yeah, they've done a very good job over
Giving-
time.
giving them
But-
anything. Thanks very much.
But I think we're doing a great job as a community,
Gatekeepers.
all of us, to fight against it. And as
Yes.
Dave alluded to earlier, and he's dead right. When they come over, when they wake up and come over to our side, you actually make a difference of two. Yeah, because you're taking one from their side and adding
Yes.
one to your side.
Yes, good
you know,
maths.
so we only need to get to that tipping point, and it doesn't need to be 50%. I think it's speculated to be around 24 or 25% before you get the snowball effect and essentially the tipping point, and then it's the inevitable is revolution. So when that day comes, and everything I do to try and bring that day, closer and closer to the present,
And do you know one other thing, Dave? I think
Yeah.
it's also, we don't know what all these young people are thinking. We're not in their shoes or in their skin. A lot of them, obviously, you can see they're just comatose because they're attached to the thing on their, these blooming iPads and phones and stuff like that. But a lot of them aren't. I've come across quite a lot of young people that aren't into that, and they know what's going on, and they're not active like we are. They're busy doing their own thing, but they know what's going on. So we don't know what they, how they're thinking. We don't know. And I think that's a good thing, because we've all been brought up in the 60s, 70s, 80s or whatever, thinking this and knowing the change. It's been so obvious to us, but we have been born into what's happening now. So, Hunger Games, there are people in the Hunger Games that did fight the system and they won.
What's the Hunger Games?
The Hunger Games. It's on the TV. It's a brilliant
I don't
film.
watch
You've
the
got to
TV.
watch or read the book. It's
No,
a brilliant
I
book.
don't- I'll read books,
Yeah,
but
read
I
the
don't
book.
watch
There's
the
3,
television.
and it's exactly what's going on now.
Oh,
Yeah.
so
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
another one of these.
It's
telling-
funny. It's funny. I don't watch TV, but every now and again somebody will tell me to watch this episode or something, and I can't remember what it was. The reason was now, but somebody got me to watch this episode of Suits. It's a TV show about lawyers. Okay, so I found what I was watching interesting, so I downloaded the whole series. And what I found quite funny was it tells you about how the legal system works, right? It tells you how much they lie. It tells you how much it doesn't matter what result you want. There's going to be case law to support all of it.
Yeah.
So the game is find the case law that beats the other person's case law.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
they can use it to support the system, they can use it to take down the system, right? But if you find one that takes down the system, somebody else will find one that supersedes that one and
But
supports
you're
the
still
system.
using their system all the time, and you're just perpetuating their system all the time, even though you're getting wins and
You have
losses.
to use their system to bring down their system.
Yeah, but because you've got to learn. Yeah, you've got to understand it and become aware of it, so you know how to come out of it.
Well, I'm sorry to
Exactly.
say
You've got to know how it works.
we're leaving their system now
We
because
are.
we are run out
Wow.
of time, which is a bit of a shame. We normally sort of ask if anyone's doing anything they want to promote on the show. Are any of our clever clogs up to something they would love people to go, apart from this thing on the 19th and 20th of
October.
October?
Well, tomorrow I'm actually giving the big speech about the mortgage project to all the potential beneficiaries of the Auric Liquidating Trust. So yes, the mortgage project is. I'm basically going to announce the website, how to start pledging to join, and how it actually works in its entirety. So people
Superb.
can decide whether that's the way they want to go.
And if you don't know what allegedly Dave's talking about, I have got a video where he came in and he sat in that very chair, and I haven't cleaned it since.
Oh.
And,
Sorry,
you know,
Karen.
sorry about that. And do check that out on the site. Put in Vobes and allegedly Dave and YouTube. It will probably come up. So really exciting stuff. And Peace Officer Dave, have you got anything?
Well, I am continuing to expand Peace Officers UK to become the first emergency official, in quotes, emergency response service established within the Matrix to protect the people trapped within the Matrix. We currently have Peace Officers UK, Peace Officers Belgium, Peace Officers Netherlands, and Peace Officers Luxembourg, and we've had inquiries to set up peace officers in New Zealand, Australia, United States, Canada, Spain, Portugal, and Germany.
Wow.
So we're looking to become an international organisation.
Fantastic.
And
Well done,
developing
that's a
that.
lot.
Really good.
Yeah.
And I think Northern Ireland need a bit of help at the moment,
Northern
don't
Ireland, yeah, we'll be.
they? Yeah, brilliant.
I saw a thing someone sent me. There's something like millions of these prisons that are being built in Northern Ireland, absolute millions, and there seems to be a lot of people from overseas arriving in rubber boats.
Oh gosh.
In there, slightly worrying. So
Wow.
I did put the video on my communities tab if you want to check
Right,
that out.
right.
Karen, anything exciting happening in your world?
Well, I'm seeing you at the weekend and these lovely guys. So yeah, that basically.
Grand.
That's looking forward to that. Canterbury.
Well, there we are. So do come along to that. And are we doing another show next week or 2 weeks' time?
I think we're doing one next week on
Next
the
week.
Thursday.
So there we are.
Promissory notes, apparently.
Promissory notes. We
Promise.
promise to write you a note. We will deliver the sum of 450 mouldy old potatoes to your door by Tuesday next week.
Yeah,
But,
that's the main theme for the first hour.
Don't hold us to it.
Oh.
So thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for coming along and on this lovely Thursday evening here in the UK. And let's hope they're not out and about spraying the skies for tomorrow so that we can have a nice weekend of sunshine. My big thanks go to the lovely Karen Dodd, who has been working very hard, to our clever clogs, who is Peace Officer Davey, and of course allegedly Dave. You'll have to say something to get up on the screen.
Oh,
It's
I
gone.
can say something.
Oh, no.
Oh.
Yeah, sorry about that.
See ya.
Otherwise,
See everyone.
and of course, the People's Lawyer, David Edelman, who has been here doing stuff, but he had to go early. Soup was on the boil. And to the lovely Julia, you can't see, who's been sitting in there moderating and feeding questions to us in the chat room. Thank you, the lovely Julia. And
She's coming to show
she's
her
coming over.
hands, feet, one hand.
There we are.
One-handed, Julia.
And if you watched my monologue this morning, you would have seen her hand with a pipe.
The pipe hand.
Yes, we had pipes smoking at
Oh.
dawn this morning.
Oh.
Dawn wasn't too happy about it. But anyway, until next time, thanks so much for watching. I'm going to press the button to turn us off. So it's been lovely to have you with us. Until next time, goodbye.
Goodbye.